Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? If you're new here, my name is Dani Christine. I'm a childcare business owner and consultant. You can find me and book me on childcaresites.com along with a whole plethora of additional resources for childcare professionals. Visit childcaresites.com to subscribe and find out more about what we can offer you and more about upcoming webinars. This video that you are about to watch is a replay of a live webinar that I held on Wednesday, May 20th, 2020, that featured guest panelists including Miss Lakeshia Dorsey from Houston, Texas, Miss Angela Jones from Memphis, Tennessee, and Miss Ineeze Gainey from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We went into some deep conversation about what's going on in the world today and how it relates to childcare specifically. All of us, including myself, who owns a center in Long Island, New York, we gave insight into our experiences as childcare business owners, some who own and operate centers and some who own home daycares. As leaders within the industry, this was a very important conversation to have, and we hope that it helps you move forward within your childcare business, whether you are considering starting one up or whether you already have one and you just need some extra guidance on how to do certain things and how to adapt to this new normal. This webinar was only supposed to be 90 minutes, but the conversation was just so good and so informative that we went over 2 hours. So I hope that you have some time. Feel free to pause the video and come back to it if you need to. And there was so much left unsaid, so if you have not already done so, be sure to head on over to childcaresites.com/services in order to register for part 2 of the conversation. And I'll leave that linked in the description below. Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Thank you all for attending this webinar, Adapting to the New Normal. I'm going to share my screen with you, which it seems like if I share my screen, you might not be able to see me anymore, but it is important for you to see the slides that I have created. So let's just jump right in. If you didn't know, we do have a part 2 of this conversation scheduled for next week, Wednesday at the same time. So you can visit childcaresites.com/services to register for that. So before we get into everything, I do want to explain exactly how this is going to work and what you can expect. We did receive your questions when you registered. We may not be able to get to answer all of them, but more webinars are coming soon. Please be respectful in the chat box. There is not a moderator watching the chat box throughout the whole time. It's just me. So if I get a chance to respond to something, I will. But if I can't in the moment, just please be patient. I will definitely read through everything towards the end. And with that said, there is a Q&A tool. You might be able to see it on your screens. There should be a button that says Q&A, and if you have a question while we're going through each of these slides and through our presentations with our panelists, in order to not forget it, put it in the Q&A box and we'll try to get to it if we can at the end of this presentation. We will not be acknowledging raised hands just because we don't have an extra person watching out for the hand raising function. But again, questions will be answered at the end. And by raised hands, I mean there is a tool where you're able to raise your hand to be acknowledged, but we will do that at the end. And at the end as well, you might get an opportunity to have your mic turned on if you have something that you would like to say. You might be able to do that again at the end. Okay. And I love feedback. This is our first webinar on childcaresites.com. So if you have any thoughts that you would like to share at the end, you might get a quick survey to complete. So please be sure to do that. I also want to give some quick disclaimers before we get into the topics of conversation. This webinar presentation is not intended to be regulatory, legal, or financial advice. We are speaking on our own experiences as business owners. You are encouraged to follow your local laws and to seek professional guidance from official licensing, legal, and financial agencies that practice or govern your local area regarding your specific business. It's important to remember that rules and regulations and executive orders vary from state to state. So please keep that in mind throughout this whole presentation. What one of us might say for our state might be very different for yours. So look into all of that. And this is not a training, it's not credit bearing, it's just us sharing our experiences, okay? Just if you are unfamiliar with childcare sites, what you can find on childcaresites.com are low-cost video courses, website design services, private video consultations, and webinars like this. So if you're interested in what we do, what else we have on there, you can go to childcaresites.com to find out. So what I'm excited for is the guests that we have featured on our panel today. Our guests include Miss Ineeze Gainey, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Miss Angela Jones in Memphis, Tennessee. Miss Lakeshia Dorsey in Houston, Texas. And then I will be your moderator, Dani Christine, and my program is located in Long Island, New York. I'll start with a very fast introduction of myself. Like I said before, my preschool program is in Long Island, New York. I've been in the childcare industry for 10 years. I started out as an assistant teacher in a daycare center back in 2010. And in 2014, I opened a group family daycare program in my home, located in Queens, New York. And a few years later, I started my center in 2017. Last year, I began consulting full-time and I founded Dani Christine Inc. And now I operate my consulting business as well as provide resources for other childcare professionals like yourself on childcaresites.com. And I have a little fun fact that I create videos on YouTube specifically for people like yourself, childcare providers, center owners, family childcare operators, and my goal is to offer you insight on my experiences. I just celebrated 10,000 subscribers on there, so if you want to check that out, you can head to my YouTube channel. But let's get into our wonderful panelists. First up, we have Miss Lakeshia Dorsey. Lakeshia, could you turn your mic on and your camera?
Hey.
Can we see you? Can everybody see Lakeshia?
All right.
Put it in the chat box if you are having any difficulties.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Lakeshia. How are you?
I'm wonderful today.
That's awesome. I'm going to share my screen again. I don't know if it's going to cut off your video, but I think we can still hear you. Can you say something?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Lakeshia sets an amazing example, in my opinion, of what it means to be a fantastic on-site owner of a preschool, and even more importantly, what it means to be a leader who delegates effectively and is able to practice what they preach. In addition to being the CEO of her own preschool, Laugh and Learn Early Learning Center, Lakeshia is the owner of EC Boss Consulting. And as a consultant, she teaches other early childhood leaders how to build high-quality preschool programs by focusing on kindergarten readiness, teacher development, and licensing compliance. Lakeshia, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I've had a great day today.
That's awesome. Before we jump into the questions that I have for you, can you let us know anything else about yourself or your background in the field?
Yes, so I have been in the early childhood field since my senior year in high school. And I received my bachelor's and my master's in early childhood. And I've had the opportunity to teach pre-K for a couple of years in kindergarten. And from that experience is what led me to want to own my own preschool. Because as a kindergarten teacher, I was able to see what skills the children truly needed. And I was able to implement that in my own preschool.
Wow.
And so, yes, I love my preschool. My preschool has been open going on 4 years.
Okay.
And about 2 years into business, I decided to start EC Boss Consulting because I used to get so many questions about how to start a preschool. And I also do a lot of trainings. And so I was like, well, let me just see. And from there, it has really taken off. And I just love to use just my knowledge and my expertise to help someone else because I just know how hard it was when I started my preschool and I really just didn't have nobody.
Right. And that's definitely something that is of value. I agree. When I first started back in 2014, I didn't feel like I had anybody either. So people like you, especially those who walk the walk and don't just talk the talk, are amazing and a blessing. So let's jump into the questions that I have for you, and also some of the questions that our attendees had for you. So when it comes to Texas, like I said in our intro, in our disclaimer, that different states have different executive orders going on right now, and the rules vary pretty much from state to state, or even sometimes within city to city in individual states. So can you tell us about how Texas has responded to childcare programs throughout this pandemic?
Okay, so they are now just getting the hang of it, I would say. March and April was very rough as far as like just the different knowledge that they were giving us. So one of the things is we were not mandated to close. I know in some places they were.
Right.
We were able to be open, but we could only care for essential workers. And literally just yesterday, the governor made an announcement that we can now serve all families. So for the last 2 months, it's been just essential families.
Wow.
The information kind of has been pieced together. I've been very annoyed throughout this process just because I felt like they wasn't communicating as much. Like I know my life syndrome was like if Lakeshia emailed me one more time, but I just felt like more support. We needed more support along that process. So for example, you guys wanted us to be open. I'm making the decision to stay open and to, care for essential workers, but I can't find no cleaning supplies.
Right.
All my vendors that I normally get cleaning supplies from, they are told that they can only service hospitals. And I get that because the hospitals did need assistance.
Right.
However, their kids are coming to preschools and childcare centers. And so we need to clean as well. And so for me, that was very frustrating. But, I was on my grind. I had every family member, every friend, every sorority sister, anybody I knew, they were going to the stores trying to find the cleaning supplies for me. Even friends and family in Louisiana was shipping things to me just so that I can have the cleaning supply because you just really couldn't find it. It just was very difficult. Now, I will say about 2 weeks ago, we've complained enough. So about 2 weeks ago, they did send us an email to say that they got us a partnership with Cisco, which will allow us to wholesale cleaning supplies specifically from that organization,
Right.
which is cool. However, we've been out here since March struggling, but I appreciate y'all efforts in May. So that was That was one of the things. Another thing that was truly frustrating was finding food. A lot of the stores had limits. So I already don't like grocery shopping. Before this even happened, I was a delivery type of girl. That's just me. So for me to even have to physically go into the store is a lot for me. But now I have to go to multiple stores because you're not finding what you need, and licensing, they did try to create this form that just lets the managers know that you are a preschool or childcare owner, so that you're able to get a little bit over the limits. Some managers accepted that. Some was like, no, they're not respecting that. So once we voiced and complained to childcare licensing, I will say that we did see a change. I can see that they seen how hard it was for us and they tried. It just kind of was one of those things like, wow, like we've been open since March, and May we're just now getting this. But by May, we done figured out what system we're gonna use.
Right.
So that was some of the things for us.
Okay, yeah, I can relate to that as well. And here in New York, where my program is located, our state also did not mandate us to close, and we are just now starting to see some sort of organization for how they can issue out supplies to support childcare providers. So I can understand your frustration. But similar to you in the beginning, back in March, I was also like scouring the internet and diving into each and every store, trying to figure out where I can get masks, gloves, cleaning supplies, all of that. So I know it's frustrating. You mentioned that Texas didn't force you to close, but did you close for any period of time, or have you been open this whole entire time?
So I closed for 1 week, all right? And this is the true story. So I went on vacation during spring break, and so I unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't know all the craziness that was happening, because I never go on a vacation. I was on a vacation, I unplugged. So when I stepped off the flight that Friday, that's when everything was kind of happening. And I was like, and my phone was blowing up. So as soon as it got out of airplane mode, emails, text messages, phone calls, everything. Wow. So I closed the week after I came from break, because I didn't have time to process what even was going on. What was the rules that needed to change? What did I need to buy? I didn't know anything. So I felt like it was only necessary to close that first week so I can get a grip on what's happening and what I can do, because I am big on, you have to have a plan. You don't just go out here head first. You have to have a plan. And because I felt like I was caught off guard, I was like, there's no way that I can basically just be getting into town late Friday night and have time to be ready for Monday morning. Not only me be ready, but I need time to talk to my teachers and my parents, and it just was no way. So I did close for that 1 week so I can get my brain together and for me to just have different types of meetings with my teachers.
Right. That makes sense. I think that was a good strategy to implement, because it did, even for us in New York, it did feel like that everything was fine and normal one day. And then I remember it was a Sunday night that our governmental agency in Nassau County decided that they were going to close. On a Sunday night, they were going to close all schools effective the next day. So I immediately had to rush to my center, and I live in Philadelphia, even though my program is in New York, and I had to drive to New York and explain to my teachers, which was a hard conversation to have, especially when there was so much uncertainty, why we were remaining open, even though K-12 schools got to close.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of trying to help them change their mindset into the fact that we are essential workers. And for us, we had what we needed in order to protect ourselves and remain open. But I know since you have been open for quite some time, you only closed for that 1 week. How has the experience been for you as far as the procedures and different things that you've had to change? What were some of your plans?
So some of the main ones was no parents were allowed into the building. So we did drop off and pick up outside, which was a little hectic at first, but we just put different systems in place where if the parents were on their way, they'll send us a message to say like I'm 5 minutes down the road, and when it was time to pick up, they would do the same thing. We took temperatures as they came in. We checked for any physical signs that they were sick, and we were listening, we're asking questions. We did change the temperature requirement to like if it was in the 99s, then no, then your child wasn't able to come, because you can go to work and that's going to easily go to hundreds, and then you got to come pick up, and it's just so much uncertainty. It was really hard for some of my allergy kid parents, because it's no way for us to know and understand if that cough, if that sneeze, if that runny nose is allergy or for something else. So we had to just be really firm with our sick policy. Our teachers are wearing masks, and we went to cleaning twice a day, which was our norm during nap time and at the end of the day, to like 4 to 5 times a day. So for me, of course, that's me running through cleaning supply way faster than I was, because that's what my teachers needed. Like my teachers, to make them feel comfortable, they needed to clean 24/7. They needed to wipe. So as an owner, I'm just gonna make sure they have the supplies to do what it is that makes them comfortable.
Right.
So those were really like the biggest thing. And like I said, the hardest thing was just was that pickup and that drop off, because we are family oriented. So it just felt very disconnected to not even allow my parents into the building, and for it to feel like this rushed type spirit that was like very hard for me
Right.
starting off.
Yeah, that's the same for us. We usually have our families come in, our exterior doors lock. But as soon as we recognize a family member, we're able to buzz them in. They come in and go straight to their class and drop off. And overnight, that had to change immediately, and we do everything outside. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from. Someone wants to know, did you put all your policies in writing for your staff and parents?
Yes. So it's not officially in my handbook yet. It will be in my handbook this summer. It went out as a memo. And basically, because the standards that I created was based off the state standards, it was easy. All I had to do was print with childcare license and send, and then said that was just effective immediately. But this summer, it will be, it's a whole section that's going in there. But I'm trying to wait to see how everything plays out, so that I only have to sit one time to
Right.
create those different policies based on it.
Right. That's the thing too. I feel like we have so much stuff changing every single day, that I understand where you're coming from. Rewriting all of these policies every week when something changes. I'm watching our governor's press conferences every day, and it seems like the news changes so frequently that what is okay one day in your center might be completely different the next day. Like masks, for example, at the start of all this, it was not advised for
Yes.
anybody that was not sick to wear masks, and now everybody should be wearing them, even children as young as 2 years old. So these are just some things to think about as you're creating your written policies. One of my recommendations, if it's possible, if you are skilled in it, if you have a website, and this is not just for you, Lakeshia, but for all of our attendees, if you have a website that you are the one updating, what I did for my center was we created a COVID-19 page, or an essential childcare page, where anytime there is an update, I can just go into the website, edit it a bit, and send out a notice, hey, there was an update. So that might be something that you guys consider in your own programs. Rather than having to redistribute paper copies, you can let families know this is the link you can go to see our current procedures and policies. But Lakeshia, with that said, how do you communicate with your families? Like, what are some ways that you've gotten the message out there about your
So
messages?
yeah, so it's rare that I print anything because my parents waste my paper. Okay, so for the last year, I don't print anything. We have a parent communication app, so everything goes out through there. So if it's something that I want them to know, then I send them a text message through the parent communication app and say, hey, look at your child's feed. And if it's something that's sensitive, like when I knew that we were going to close for that week, that was a sensitive type announcement. So I put, if you got this announcement, respond back with an emoji. So it required my parents to let me know they got it. So if I didn't get an emoji from a certain parent, then I pick up the phone to call. That was just to make sure that don't nobody come when we're closed. But I do mostly electronic through our parent communication app. That's our one-stop shop.
Yeah, I think that's so creative. Respond with an emoji.
Yes.
A lot of parents do like to ignore messages or say they
Yes.
didn't get anything. That is a great idea. And what are some ways that your teachers are or plan to implement social distancing within the classroom?
Okay, so social distancing has been a challenge. I will say that. The best way that we have done it is we do more small group activities. So, of course, like we did family style dining, so of course that stopped. We started back making the plates in the kitchen, so the kids wasn't passing around any food or anything like that. So we did stop that. Um, and so that helped. But the biggest thing was just small groups, trying like, who is your buddy? Oh, that's your buddy? Okay, you're going to play with your buddy today.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it being like one-on-one all day, because that's just unrealistic. We might as well close if you want kids to be one-on-one all day. But we did do our best to group the children in like sets of 2, sets of 3s. And we did want to do circle time. Then we probably didn't do circle time all on the rug. They'll sit at their chairs at the table, spaced out, and we would be able to read our story or whatever it is that we were doing. But that's very difficult because it's not so much difficult for us. It's explaining it to a child why I can't go do that, because that's what they kept asking, especially our 3 and 4-year-olds. Well, why can't I do that? I used to could do that, and so trying to explain to them, I get what you're saying, but XYZ. Another thing that we did do is every single day we implemented a hygiene lesson. So every single day we watched a YouTube video about washing your hands, and we watched a YouTube video about covering your cough in your cough pocket, which is your elbow. So we did that 24/7. I mean, like often. And so those were some of the things that we did to kind of implement it, and just to kind of drill home so they understood, well, this is why we want you to be a little separate from your friends. You can play with your friends, but can you give them space and, all of that. It's usually very difficult to explain that to a child when before all of this, if they were playing by themselves, we would say, don't you want to play with your friends? We encouraged social development before this, but now all of a sudden, for right now, we want it to stop. And then when this is over, we want them to start back playing. So it's just kind of tricky. It's real tricky.
Of course. And we do have a question sent in from an attendee who wants to know, have you implemented more outdoor play since the pandemic? And if so, is it more structured like center time, or is it unstructured?
So we have implemented more outdoor play, and it is a mixture of both. We do allow the children to do just free play, but we know that if we give them this free play opportunity, they're going to all group together with their friends. So what we did was we brought out more activities for them to do outside, which will low-key encourage them to probably do some on their own. So it was like, this is a chalk bucket for you. This is bubbles for you. So that helped a little bit. So some kids would go to that center area on our playground and do that. And we only had like a select few that will kind of be grouped together. But even the ones that was grouped together, when we seen that, we was like, all right, you guys, you want to race? Just to try to get them to break up some. So that's just kind of how we've handled it. It's just been very tricky. So it's just, you just have to do what you feel is best for your center and for your kids and for your staff.
Right, I agree. There's a couple different strategies that I've seen online, like people showing, I think there were photos from like Europe or France specifically, where children were in boxes, like teachers drew sidewalk chalk, large boxes, and placed children in boxes outside, and were doing some sort of like a Zumba class or like something like that, where they stay in their own specific area and it's not just free play on the jungle gym. There's different creative way. We just have to get creative at this time, especially for outdoor play, I feel. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lakeshia.
Welcome.
We're going to move on to Miss Angela, and Lakeshia will bring you back at the end for an open Q&A. Anybody that has questions for Lakeshia or what she spoke on, please be sure to put it in the Q&A box or in the chat box. We'll check it at the end, like I mentioned. I have been following Angela's program's Instagram page for years, PP Academy. For those of you that don't know, like I said before in my intro, you should know now, but I started my experience as a childcare entrepreneur as a family daycare provider in my home. And I love seeing posts from PP Academy. From what I can see, Angela does not cut corners within her program. She does a fantastic job at highlighting every little detail within an activity, lesson, or even just the way she serves her kids' meals is done with so much care and attention. As an award-winning family childcare educator, Angela is an expert that has served on many boards and is the current author of The Art of Family Childcare. Angela, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, as good as I can be during these times.
Exactly. I think that's an answer that we all can give.
Yeah.
Good evening to all the attendees.
Thank you so much for being with us. And
Thank you for having me.
Before we jump into your questions, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've got going on?
Sure. So I've had a lot of things going on lately, pending that I've had so much time. But I have been a family child care educator for 6 years now. And the experience has been amazing, more than I ever would have imagined at the onset of me deciding to do this. But currently, some things that I have going on, I am a new adjunct professor in early childhood. So that has been an experience for me, as well as teaching in my first semester and then having it abruptly interrupted by COVID. So going from face to face with my college students to being everything online was not only an adjustment for them, but an adjustment for me as well, being a new adjunct professor. And then being able to get the book out during this time. Those are just some of the things that I've had going on during COVID. So it has been an adjustment, but I've tried to make the best of the time that I've been given.
Right. You do have so much going on. And congratulations again on your new position as an adjunct professor.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
And congratulations on your book. I don't think I said that before our call started.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And then I just saw in the comments someone was asking how can they purchase the book. So the book is available on barnesandnoble.com.
Right. Yes. And if you look at the PowerPoint, I think I have it up now. It's called The Art of Family Childcare. This is what it looks like. And as Miss Angela said, it is available on Barnes and Nobles. So we can get into some of the questions. We know that your program is located in Memphis, Tennessee, correct?
Correct. Yes, Memphis.
And similar to what I said with Lakeshia, every state has been different. So can you tell us about how your state has responded to childcare programs throughout this pandemic? Were you forced to close?
Sure. So here in Tennessee, specifically, as you just mentioned, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. You have had the choice as an owner to either have your program open or to have your program closed. And if you are still open, you are probably servicing some essential workers as well as some of your your normal parents or families that you may have. As for me personally, my program has been closed now since after spring break. So we took spring break the week of March 16th, and I decided to make the voluntary choice of not returning after spring break. And so Paideia has been closed since March, the last week of March during this time. So for Tennessee, there are additional funds that programs can apply for the money that is available for parents who may be essential workers who are still needing the services of childcare. As for myself, I chose to look at it to make a decision based on the students that I have. If I have any students that may have previous underlying conditions that I am aware of. Also, being a family child care educator, I do my program actually from my mom's home, who helps and assists me. And although she does not have any underlying preconditions, being that she does fall in the age range that was referenced by the CDC in the very beginning, I just chose to make the difficult decision of remaining closed. And after learning that a lot of my parents were pleased with that and was actually feeling like that was the best decision to make, that they were either going to be home or, there was someone in the family that the child could stay with, it was a mutual agreement to make the best decision in the interests of the children.
Right. I can tell from your Instagram that it seems like you have amazing engagement and participation and support from your family specifically, even more so than other programs, in my opinion. I'm glad that you say that your families were in support of your decision to close, and I'm not surprised by it. I think that they trust you and the excellent service that you provide. So that's awesome.
Yes, and speaking of that, it's funny you said that because that was the exact words of one of my parents. It's like, Miss Angela, we trust your decision. And even, there was one point that I sent a corresponding email that kind of alluded to a possible reopening date. Then I had to end up backtracking on that date because cases spiked. And so I had to end up going back on my decision.
Right.
After taking into consideration some things the CDC was saying, some things that our government was saying, our local government was saying. So I just decided to, retrace my email and say, unfortunately, we're still not going to be able to open. And so I will say my parents have been very open and appreciative of the fact that I have taken into consideration the children. And let me say this too, I have, I think maybe 2 parents who are considered essential. Mm-hmm. And even with them being essential and still having to go to work, I was appreciative to know of their appreciation for me taking into consideration the safety of the children.
Right. That's a great point. So do you have any idea now that certain states are starting to reopen non-essential businesses? Do you have another projected date of when you might open your program?
I do have another projected date. It's June 1st.
Okay.
And actually I say about 2 days ago, and if you follow my Instagram, you see that the students partake in dissecting. So I have a doctor that comes in to dissect with the students. So she has also been a very reliable source to me as far as letting me know what's going on with the virus, its impact with children that may not necessarily be in our news stories. And she had a very long, detailed conversation with me just a few days ago, wanting me to reconsider June 1st. And so that is something that I am now thinking about. And she presented to me reasons for her being on the front lines of what she's still seeing, the conference calls that she's being on with other doctors, and the information that they're receiving that we're not hearing about on our local news or in our national news. So June 1st is a projected time for me. But I will say, after speaking with her and listening to some things that she had to say, being a doctor, I may have to reconsider June 1st, but I will definitely, before I do that, have a one-on-one conversation with my families and see where we are.
Right. Okay. And it's great to have people like that in your corner.
Absolutely. I never in a million years would have thought that, every time I talk to her, it's about planning for the children, about planning the next dissecting. And now our relationship has turned into, we had a relationship anyway, because we're actually high school classmates. But now just being able to utilize her in this time, and for her to provide me with feedback and to just let me know those things that she's seeing on the front lines as a doctor, it has really helped me in making sound decisions for my program.
Of course. And that's similar to what is required of daycare centers, specifically in New York. Outside of New York City, daycare centers are obligated to have a healthcare consultant.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor, but it could be like a registered nurse or someone like that, to bounce ideas off of and talk to about things like this. So I don't know if it's not required of home daycares in New York, but I'm not sure if it is in Tennessee. But even if it's not, just having someone that is a professional in any area where you need some professional advice is valuable as a child care provider, whether it's legal advice like an attorney or an accountant, or I know we wear a lot of different hats as child care providers, but we cannot be experts in everything. So it is important to lean on those experts and do what's right for your program and your children and your family based on what the experts are saying. And you're definitely doing that.
Absolutely.
So, being that you're not open just yet, what do you foresee being your new procedures when you do open?
Wow. There will definitely be a lot of changes. And that's why, although I have been closed, I've definitely been using this time to rethink some policies, procedures, and some strategies about what does reopening look like. And the current crisis has definitely made me rethink my emergency preparedness plan, needing to add some things or adjust the parent handbook.
Right.
So the game plan of action here is, one, me looking at the CDC guidelines and, of course, seeing what they're saying, paying attention to our government on a national level and as well as locally. But I have definitely invested in some additional tools and things. Like, I have always kept thermometers and things of that nature, but I did reorder the infrared touch.
Oh, I just ordered those too.
And so if anyone, I'm sure everyone on here, if you have a center or program, you have thermometers laying around. But I did just order this one from iHealth. And so if anyone, if you want to get a new one or you want to get more to add to your inventory for right about now, they still have some available. They ship out of California. And so unfortunately, my parents have been explained that I won't be able to allow them into the home during this time. one of the things Lakeshia referenced is the pretty much kind of, I call it the childcare curbside concierge service that will have to take place as far as, texting me once you're in the driveway, coming out to check the child's temperature, logging the temperature, also taking the temp before the end of day. Another thing that I will be doing will be abbreviated hours. Being that it's the summer, June and July, I cut short in the summer anyway on my hours. So having abbreviated hours this summer, the program still will run Monday through Friday, but it will definitely be shortened hours. And basically, it's really going to be all about communication. Of course, the hand washing, not only making sure that the parents understand how we're going to hand wash at school, but also making sure that parents are carrying over that same caution. I mean, I know they're being cautious, but sometimes I've learned you can't take for granted that your parents know. And so making it a point to let them know, here is how we're doing it. And if you can also follow this same guideline at home for hand washing. So being in communication, I feel like it's important for me to take the temperature twice, morning and right before we leave. And to also not only take it, but keep a daily log so that in the event the child leaves the program, and I got this little tidbit from the doctor that assists the students, but in the event that the child leaves care, they go to a family member's house or they go interact with their little cousins, or, they may go out somewhere else, that child can possibly, if, forbid, anything goes wrong or they come down sick, I can show documentation, okay, at the time that they checked out, there was no fever. So it kind of can, in a little way, kind of protect you some. And just so you can kind of know that, okay, once the child left me, at the end of the day, there was or there was not a fever.
Right, I agree.
So hand washing, proper masking, the PP gear for myself, as well as for my mom, even though I will still make sure that right now she has limited interaction with the children. So it will mostly be just myself and, doing that one-on-one interaction. Although I do know my numbers will be slightly lower during this summertime, even if I do decide to come back June 1st.
Those are all great points. And if anybody, I know someone in the chat said that their thermometer came today, and like I said, I ordered the same one. If anyone is interested in it, I will insert that in the chat at the end of this meeting. And to your point, Angela, about checking temperatures, in my program, we have also been, we've been open this whole time, but we've been checking temperatures twice a day, once upon arrival and also once right before nap time. For those reasons, like you said, temperatures could be very different within a couple of hours, and we want that extra protection. So I think that is a great point.
And also too, about the cleanliness, cleaning has always been a top priority for myself and my mom, but I can only imagine during this time it will be magnified. But that's another part of this, that, making sure that you're only allowing, in my opinion, select toys that are out for engaging select activities, and allowing the children to be in the centers where you can easily clean, or, just trying to maintain the level of activity that goes on and the interaction with some of the things to help prevent some of the germ spreading.
Right. Okay. And it seems like you have an open line of communication with your families. How has your communication been with them? Like, are you calling each of them every week? Are you sending emails? Like, how do you do it?
So in the beginning, it was a lot of FaceTiming with my students. but as far, which was a good thing. But now here, as time has gone on, it has been constant communication via email, correspondence, text messages, Google Duo, direct phone calls. I send emails out to everyone, but I always find that when I take a moment to call my parents one-on-one, I always get a little bit more out of them. You know, you get an email and you'll read it, and then you may have some questions, but you might not have time to reply back then. And so I found that even though I'll send an email, I always try to follow it up with a phone call if I can, maybe not in the same day, but a day or so later. Or I may send a text to say, you know, if you have any questions, please let me know, or we may communicate through text. But I always find out that even though I send that email or that mass text out, if I take the time to call them one-on-one, I can get a little bit more out of them, and I can really see where they are individually.
Right. I agree. Just a quick note, Nicole in the chat mentioned that sometimes parents give Tylenol to their children before they leave for school. That's a great point, Nicole. In New York, it is required for providers to do daily health checks or outside of COVID-19. Just in general, it is mandatory for providers to do health checks. And one of the questions that our licensing recommends that we ask is, did the child receive any medication? Not just specifically for us to know whether it was fever reducing or anything like that, but if a parent happens to give a child a certain medication and they have a reaction or something happens to them because the parent gave medication, it's important for us as child care providers to ask that question at the beginning of the day when the parent is dropping off. Did this child have any medication? Are there certain things that we need to know and document it? And that is important now more than ever for all children involved. But that's I just wanted to point that out because I think that's a good point.
Yes, and that's a common, like you said, prior to COVID, right. That's a common practice to make sure that communication is as detailed and thick in description as possible at drop off in the morning time. You know, and I understand, you know, your mornings can get a little crazy and bombarded, but I always try to make sure that there is some type of communication when it comes to how was the child's evening, as well as how was their morning and their overnight sleep as well.
Right, exactly. So you spoke about your procedures that you're going to implement when you do reopen, but what are some strategies that you plan to use to social distance within a home daycare setting? Because I know that's a little bit different than in centers where there's probably more space to space out, but what do you think about that? How do you plan to do that?
The biggest thing for social distancing in a home is, you're absolutely right, it's a little bit tighter, and you don't have the move around space that you would have in a center setting. So one of the things that I will be doing is, like I said, the abbreviated hours. The two options that I've been kind of going between, which once again will go back to my parents letting me know which will work best, will either be 3 days on, 2 days off, or we would come Monday through Friday, but it would kind of serve as a Mother's Day out type of program where the children would we would not have traditional hours. And with those hours, one of my biggest concerns is nap time for social distancing. So there is required distancing long before social distancing during nap time anyway.
Yeah.
So those things like nap time with the abbreviated hours, that would cut out our nap component. And as well as, maybe having to, of course, not maybe, but changing the seating arrangements that I love to do with the students, which is the estate family style seating. Doing away with that, or depending on how many children I have in care at the time, perhaps, leaving 2 or a seat in between each child to give that distancing. And the big thing will be the interaction, what will the learning look like? So I am right now, I had my curriculum all planned out and ready to go for the summer and for fall, actually. And now I am having to go back to either, trim down some things, take some things out altogether, and try to figure out a way that I can still be one-on-one. The children can still gain the benefit of the program, and it can also still be fun at the same time. I want to be careful to use the word engaging, because when you think of children and engaging, that's them touching, that's them, not practicing social distancing. So, and part of it, as Lakeshia said, is, really letting the children know what's going on and why our learning environment looks different, why you may not be able to sit next to your friend right now. Mm-hmm. So definitely taking a look at my curriculum, as I love to do things that are engaging for them. I have always been very big with them, though, on practicing hygiene, like for coughing, sneezing, even just simply touching of each other when really you don't have to, just those germ moments. So that has been something that I've always from day one worked with the children of PPA on anyway. And, if you sneeze or if you cough, stopping right then and there to let Miss Angela know my hands needs, I need to clean my hands. So those are things that, I've done anyway, always have done. And I hope, that they remember that. Even as they have to go on into kindergarten for my 3 that would have been graduating. I just hope there are some things that I've instilled in them that have to do with being clean and just being aware of germs that will now, I hope, benefit them even more than ever during this time.
Right. And you mentioned graduation. You have some kids that are supposed to be graduating. When it comes to filling those spaces come the fall, how do you communicate with parents that might be anxious?
Yes. So I'm glad you asked that, because I have been receiving still, which I am so grateful for, numerous enrollment requests. Or I've even had a number of parents who are on my waiting list. They're following back up now. And so I will be doing virtual prospective visits with parents via Zoom or via Skype. And I'm gonna probably have to start scheduling those soon. Honestly, the seats that were my graduating 3 seats, they have been taken, but I still have parents that are inquiring about enrollment. So I will be conducting those visits where it will have to be done in the setting like we're doing now. And the good thing is, no, they won't be able to come into the home, at this time, but they have at least seen the program via social media. But that is something that I am going to have to, be creative with during this time. And I think I'm going to, take the option with that as to do a virtual type of prospective parent interview.
Right. And you do a great job at getting your message out there and advertising on social media, even if it's not intentional as far as like attracting new leads. But the amazing things you do in your program have attracted families and inspired other providers nationwide, I would say. but yeah, as far as virtual tours, that is something that we also implemented in my program. Within the first week of the government shutting down schools in our state, we filmed a virtual tour of our program, going through each classroom, explaining the new health and safety procedures that we have, kind of demonstrating it. And we put that up on our website on that COVID-19 page that I mentioned earlier. So families can see it written out and documented what our current procedures and policies are, as well as see a video tour of our program, so that we don't have to invite anybody inside during these times.
Absolutely.
We do have a question that was submitted, so I want to quickly go over it before we move on. Michelle wants to know, what are some new policies that you will implement if you are a home daycare provider? And I know that you spoke on your procedures, but I'm not sure if Michelle means like written policies, like what are you going to document and send out? But we can answer that question since you already spoke on your procedures.
Okay, so the written part, definitely updating my handbook. And my handbook, I update it quite often. It's amazing how sometimes once you get to a point that you see, sometimes parents can help you realize some policies that you have not thought about. So you're like, I might want to add that to my handbook. So definitely, as far as COVID-19, definitely strengthening the wording for my sickness policy. A really big thing that I have had to learn, even during, I'm going to say, a normal cold and flu season, is that I have had to stop letting parents pass off allergies on me for a cold. And I had a physician to tell me that, like, a cold, allergies, allergies are allergies, a cold is a cold. And allergies are normally not active in the cold and flu season. It is a cold. And so definitely now, I've had to let my parents know, even now, allergies are going to be considered to be the common cold, because it's so many unknown variables right now with COVID and the supposedly spinoff of what they're now seeing in children. So to take precaution is, you can't overlook or assume that anything is anything. So definitely strengthening and making the wording a little bit more intentional and definite and defined with my description for my illness policy within my handbook. Also, having the parents to sign an additional document that outlines, some strategies that the academy are going to take in the event that we choose to open back during this time. And that's just to make sure that parents are saying, hey, I'm aware, I received it. As well as, keeping the, as far as documentation, keeping a log of temperatures of not only my students, but myself and my mom as well. So that, if Department of Human Services comes out and they just want to see and make sure that even myself as the educator has not, shown any signs, I just still want to be able to show that I'm also documenting myself as well. And I did see, I think I caught a little bit part of someone's comment in the chat box about they've been open this entire time and they have not, had any sick children. And I want to say that is wonderful. That is amazing. And, I just think it is a blessing that through all of this, daycares, there have been so many that have remained open, and there has not been, just this outbreak of anything among teachers or among children. So I think that is wonderful. It's a blessing. But at the same time, I just don't think that we should still, it's no time to let our guards down just because we know, like, for some programs, and I hear it so much here lately when I'm just networking and conversating with other owners, and it's like, oh, well, I'm still open, and I haven't closed, and that's great. That is wonderful. But on the other hand, some of us, decided to close our doors. And for those that have remained open, I think it's great, but it's also, it doesn't present the opportunity, to let our guards down, to say,
Right.
I haven't seen anything, or, my children are all healthy, or, it's still a lot of unknown.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody should jump the gun and make decisions just because they see that their friend's program isn't getting any cases. I think that it's important that if you did make the decision to stay open, like we did, and like Lakeshia did, our programs are open, but we immediately took action to take preventative, like, things as precautions to make sure that we try our best to reduce the risk of spreading the virus.
Definitely. Because we've all seen it, but even on social media, even before COVID, I see some programs doing some things, and I'm just like,
yeah.
And now that we're dealing with COVID,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
that would be an interesting walkthrough,
And I can't imagine if I had a home daycare program still, I probably would close as well, because I can't imagine bringing the possibility of infection or virus into my home that is so dangerous with the people that I love. So I can understand that decision.
Well, yeah, and then something else too, even though I do not, run my program from my personal home, I run it, like I said, from my mom's home. My husband, on the other hand, still has to leave home every day going to work.
Right.
So, it's even a chance with that of me just having to make sure that I'm careful, because you definitely don't want to be the one that brings this into your business.
Right.
And unfortunately, I did talk to a provider who, I don't like to say provider, let me say this, owner or educator, who closed. The parent, one of her parents, had to take their child to another program that chose to remain open. The sibling of the child contracted COVID.
Oh, wow.
You know how?
No, how?
The owner ended up testing positive.
Oh my gosh.
No symptoms initially, and it was heartbreaking to hear the story.
Yeah.
It was definitely heartbreaking. So, sometimes, like I said, to hear the owner say, oh, I'm still open, or oh, I'm still open, it's great. But, when you hear a story like that, for me, it just makes me continue to, want to take the necessary steps or time that it may take to reopen my doors.
Right. It is important to take time, and similar to what Lakeshia did, she came back from vacation and she realized, like, oh my gosh, all these things are changing. Let me close for a minute, gather my thoughts, get all my stuff together, make a plan. That's important, to have a plan.
And then reopen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and
actually, one of my students at the college where I teach, her 4-year-old nephew caught it, so, and it wasn't a spinoff, it was COVID. So, the child's 4 years old. So it's real, even when it comes to, children contracting it. And so
Yeah. So, in my advice, I would just say to make sure that you do what is best for your program. For all our attendees watching right now, consider what's going on in your area. I know certain states are reopening, but look at what is going on locally, and what resources do you have? There are a lot of supplies that you need right now. We have spent thousands of dollars on PPE, cleaning products, and all of that to have on stock, in stock, to make sure that we can use it as needed. So consider what's best for your program.
And I say this is the perfect time to implement those just extra things that need to be said. You know, sometimes I know I deal with the little guilt of, you know, do I document too much? Do I have parents signing too many things? But right about now, there's no time to, you know, be negligent and not making sure that your parents understand your policy. My handbook, someone asked me a few weeks ago, how many pages is your handbook? Because she was trying to put together a handbook. And I told her my handbook is currently like at 35 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Now I got to insert a section in there about, you know, diseases, or, you know, I've never thought that I would have to, you know, I just have a simple section in there about, you know, being the common illness, runny nose, fever, cold. But, you know, I'm going to have to go back in there and do a whole section and create another document that has to now go into an enrollment packet, even going forward once COVID is over. You know, here is what the Academy learned. Here is how we're going to move forward. And we just want to make sure perhaps this returns in the fall or it returns next year. Hopefully, Lord, it will not, that you as a parent understand this is how PPA will handle it.
Right. I agree. And that's what policies are. Like, they might start off small when you're just opening your business. It might be a couple of pages. And then once you realize certain things that are, that you don't like or you want to change, that's how the policy is developed.
They protect you. They really do. And I can say that from personal experience. They protect you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Angela. You gave great insight, and I'm so thankful that you were able to join us today. We are going to move on to Ineeze. So if you could please turn your camera off, and we'll go back to the presentation really quick. I have had the pleasure of meeting Miss Gainey. I call her Miss Gainey myself. I have met Miss Ineeze. I attended one of her licensing classes about 2 years ago. And last summer, I personally booked her for a coaching session myself when I was thinking about expanding my childcare business into Philadelphia. Because like I said, my program is in New York, but I live in Philly. So last summer, she helped me with some insight into what licensing looks like here. She's been in business for 13 years, and in addition to being a coach and a mentor to other childcare providers, she made the time to write Building Blocks to Becoming a Childcare Boss. Ineeze, how are you doing today?
I am blessed. I can say that I am surely blessed, you know, during this time. So yeah. Grateful.
I think that's important to note. Myself as well. I'm blessed to be able to say that everything is okay and my family and loved ones are good during this time. And my condolences to anybody that is watching this that has lost a loved one during this unprecedented time. But before we jump into the questions that I have for you and that some of our attendees have for you, could you tell us a little more about yourself and your history?
Sure. So like you said, that I've been in business myself for 13 going on 14 years in July. I've been in the early childhood field for about 21, 22 years. Now I've had my family, I started off in family some people don't know that. They think that I just have a center, but I do have a family facility as well. I don't really talk about it a lot. I don't know why, maybe just because it's my babies. but I do have a facility in my home, and I branched off and did my center about 6 years ago. Started that. It's an eco-friendly Go Green facility, and we are located in the urban area. I just felt like I wanted to start that inside of the community that I grew up in, so that way I can, just give back to the children that, look like me, come from the same background as me, and so forth and so on, and give them the type of education that they wouldn't technically get in this area. So yeah, like you said, I wrote a book. It's been a year and something now it's been out. It's still available on Amazon or through my website as well, and I'll personally sign it, put a little special note in there for you, and send it off to you. I also have a t-shirt line. It's called Teach Shirts. That's also on my website as well. That just has like cute little sayings and stuff like that on there.
And what is your website? I'll put it in the chat for anybody.
It's Linktree / Childcare Boss and the number 1.
Okay. And like I mentioned before, I now live in Philadelphia, and I was thinking about opening a program here, and that's not completely out of the question yet. We might revisit that this summer or in the fall, depending on how things go. But I'm not familiar with Pennsylvania's executive orders on childcare. Could you fill us in on how the state has responded?
So yeah, it totally was like very all of a sudden, like, okay, stop. The kids have to go home by 12 o'clock, and it was like literally still the morning where my parents were dropping their kids off. So it's like I didn't have any time to notify them. So it's like I had to just wait till they came to say, hey, you can leave them, but you're going to have to turn right back around and pick them up. So what do you want to do? And most of them, well, all of them really just took them back home at that point, because everything was just kind of just so abrupt, and I didn't really have any other answers for them other than just take your child home. So from that day, they had a deadline of how long we were going to stay, closed, and then they just kept extending it and just kept extending it. Like every 2 weeks, they would just, continue to extend it to where we are now. But I will say that they did continue to pay us, which I was very grateful for, minus the fact of our private pays and also our co-pays, which, was a good thing for some of us, depending on what your capacity, if you dealt with a lot of, you about to say something?
Yes, I just want to make sure that you clarify who they is when you refer to they continue.
Okay. So yeah. ELRC, so that's who our funding comes from through the government. Is
and that's the subsidy if you
yes.
Okay.
If you're in Pennsylvania, right? So they did continue to pay us, like I said, minus private pays and our co-pays. We had to, agree not to charge the parents their co-pay fees, even though I was hearing some stories where some, childcare practitioners were trying to get over on parents and still making them, pay that fee, which is like outrageous. But yes, so depending, like I said, on what your capacity was, if you have majority of subsidy children versus private pay, it could have been a good thing for you. But for those providers that did not, that they pretty much kind of suffered from that, because that is majority of what their income base is coming from, those private pays. And, I don't think anybody really had in their policies for a pandemic, if that occurs, that your private pays still have to pay their fees. I know most of us have in there, if we go on vacation, if they go on vacation, if your child is sick, they still have to pay type of thing, but not a pandemic where we're out for months on end. So right. That kind of hurt, a lot of childcare practitioners as well in that matter. But yes, they did continue to pay us. And they still are, and they just kind of update us towards like the end of every month. So they should be telling us something again come this week, next week, if ELRC will continue to pay us through the month of June. So we are getting paid through the month of May. So we're just waiting to hear what they're saying about June. We did have a date that we were supposed to open up to as well in the beginning of June, but I don't think that's going to happen either, just because of some other things that kind of are coming down the pipeline, which kind of shows me that we're not probably going to be open for when June comes. So yeah, but they've been okay for the most part. ELRC, the government, but you know, they're sending out the information that they're getting, you know, to us, I guess, as they are receiving it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, and you guys are very fortunate to have those subsidy parents where the state is able to continue paying you guys. I know a lot of providers often look down upon having subsidies or would prefer not to take in children.
I know.
And honestly, those programs are the ones that are struggling the most right now, because like you said, in most of our policies, we don't have it written out like in case of pandemic.
Right.
Even if you did, would you want to?
Right.
Especially when companies, like all these major companies, are offering you know, you don't have to pay until next month, or like deferring your payment.
Right.
Just as a business, like marketing move, would you want to be known as the program that is charging families for money right now when you know that they're laid off of work or something? Absolutely. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some sort of plan where you, because it is a business at the end of the day. If you do not have subsidies, maybe you do need to come up with something where parents pay like 25% or whatever they can do. But yeah, it is a blessing to have subsidized childcare right now. In my program, we do as well. If we closed, our subsidy is not going to pay. So that's unfortunate for us in Long Island. But it's great that they're doing that in Philadelphia or in the state of Pennsylvania. Do you have, and I just want to make a note that I know that this webinar is supposed to end in 8 minutes, but there's so many great questions that we have going on. If you guys do have some spare time beyond 7:30, please stay on. And if you don't, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone that has registered. But back to you, Ineeze. Do you have any plans or procedures in place for when you do reopen?
Absolutely. So I've already sent out like a memo to my parents, just preparing them for the change. Pretty much like the other ladies were, you know, saying, I'm going to have like a setup for when it's time for them to drop them off. You know, we do our sign-ins through Brightwheel, where the parents put like their codes in to check them in and check them out. So I'll just bring like the iPad outside. I'll have like a whole station set up with, you know, sanitizer, mask, and things like that. And I also purchase masks for the children. We'll see how long that lasts, but because I know even we use masks for like if they have like a cough and stuff like that, but they don't last through the day. You know, we're probably like changing them probably 2-3 times out the day with that. So I can only imagine, but we're just going to try. We're just going to see what, you know, what works and what doesn't work. But definitely, yes, I'll have stations put outside of my facility, you know, signs for 6 feet apart, where they'll like stand in line to be ready to check their child in. I'll just take them from at the door and then just bring them inside to the teacher that'll be inside. But yeah, no parents will be, unfortunately, allowed to step foot inside of the building at all. And again, hand sanitizer, they will have to sign off on a form. A lot of stuff that you guys already kind of mentioned, but I will have a questionnaire asking, yes, did the child have a fever the night before? Was any medication given? Because yes, we know that they tend to do that, you know, mask them if they did have a fever and then don't tell you, but then usually around nap time, that secret comes alive and we find out that, you know, all of a sudden this child has a fever, and then you ask the parent, they're like, oh yeah, they did have a fever last night. Okay, you didn't think to tell me. So yes, have them sign off on that. And again, like you said, take their temperature when they first come, and then take their temperature again during that time, because like I said, that's usually when that medication starts to, you know, wear off. So, and then the same thing for pickup time, you know, have them call or send a text through our Brightwell app saying that they're 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, or even they're outside. We'll get the child together, make sure that they, you know, wash their hands and all that, as we always done before they, you know, leave, and also upon arrival as well. So, yeah, that's pretty much for right now, which I know there'll be some other things into place, but also with my staff too as well. So I have masks for them, I have shields for them, you know, whatever they feel comfortable, you know, with doing. If they want to, you know, wear those things around the children, that's fine with me. The same thing with the cleaning routines. You know, we already, you know, as childcare providers, we are like obsessed with cleaning anyway. So right. I know that will be on 100. And I also invested in a steamer too. So we'll be steaming things, you know, throughout the day, at the end of the day, you know, stuff like that. I saw somebody commented in the question saying like, will you spray the kids down with something when they come in? I don't recommend any chemicals doing anything like that, but maybe the steamer might, you know, kind of kill some germs with that, you know, too. Like, you ever seen like restaurants, you walking in, they have that blower that blows down on you when you walk in the door? Mm-hmm. That's supposed to kind of eliminate, you know, germs. So like, you know, yeah, they have like this blower thing that when you walk through the door, like blows like this force of air. Yeah, so, you know, something like that might be, you know, a good idea, or even using the steamer to just kind of steam them, you know, because it doesn't get it gets hot, but it doesn't get hot like the, you know, burn them like that if you're just, you know, from afar just steaming off their clothes or something like that. But yeah, so those are just some things that we'll be doing. Yeah. So
since you addressed Paula's question, it was Paula that asked, are you thinking about spraying something on the kids' clothes when they come into the daycare?
Yeah.
I will say that whenever you're thinking about doing anything with the children, you should definitely consult an attorney, or look at the ingredients of what you're doing when it comes to topical ointments or any sort of sprays or anything. We do not spray down our kids,
right?
But it's not a silly question. It's actually about
because people would. I've seen people use markers to write on kids saying that they needed change of clothes with a permanent marker.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. Yeah. But you can, instead of trying to spray down the kids, an alternative could be to make sure that you and your staff are protected. In our infant and toddler room, I have implemented that our staff has to wear scrub jackets covering their clothing. And so that would, in case a child drools or spits up on them, it's not on their body or on their clothing, it's on the scrubs. Especially in our infant and toddler rooms where they have to be picked up and loved on and hugged and stuff. So that's an idea, instead of worrying about spraying down the kids. Also, I meant to ask you, you said you have face coverings and stuff for your staff if they choose to. In New York, it's mandatory that our staff wear face coverings. Is it mandatory in Pennsylvania or no?
Well, during the drop off and pickups, they said, but I am definitely, they're going to have to wear like the face mask, but I'm talking about like the shield part, like the extra, you know, that plastic thing or whatever, like if they want to wear that, but definitely, yes, the face mask. And gloves, I'm really not too, you know, and like keen with that, because I just feel like you're just still touching things and you're just kind of spreading things around. I'd rather you're near water, so just, you know, wash your hands, you know what I'm saying? Or even use sanitizer if need be, versus you wearing, you know, kind of gloves all day. You know, I think it kind of defeats the purpose. But no, definitely will be masked up.
Okay. And since you guys have been closed, how has your communication with your families have been? I know Angela mentioned how she communicates and calls her families, but I know you have a center, so you might have a bit more. How do you handle communication?
Communication has been well for the most part. It was a bit rough at first, just because we didn't know what we were doing, where we were going, how long we were going to be out for. But like I said, we use Brightwheel to communicate with our parents. So we're able to send, messages on there, memos on there, things like that. And then once we realized that, we were going to be out for a little bit longer time, then I started to incorporate doing the whole Zoom sessions with my children, and then I was able to briefly talk to the parents during those times to just kind of check on them and see how their well-being, how they're doing, and any concerns and questions that they individually might have had, I could address it right then and there, instead of just sending like that message through Brightwheel, and saying if you have any concerns and they just don't feel like typing it or responding or whatever. So while I have them on the Zoom session, I always address the parent first before I jump into my session with my children. So it's been good. They're very anxious now. At first it was like, okay, but they're very anxious now, I think, because they get to see how their children really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would, for those of us that are attending this webinar, that do not have centers or home daycare programs open just yet, but we're maybe thinking about it, what would you recommend for people who were in the process of opening a new program before this all started, or those who might want to, in the future?
I say continue, do as much as you can right now, as far as like those trainings that you need to get done, your background checks that you need to have done, even looking for properties. I actually had a client today that I was talking to, and I was telling her how, this time is very sad. But on the flip side, there are some things that are going to come about from it as well. I'm looking at it as like only the strong is going to survive, through this. So, if you're one of those people that are just going to like take your head off, like I'm done, I can't do it, you're definitely not going to survive during this time. But if you're a pusher, a go-getter, a hustler, you're going to get through it by any means, so you're going to see a lot of businesses closing, which is, going to be a very sad thing, because they can't withstand what's going on right now, or they didn't have their paperwork, properly, done. So they can't get the grants and things that are out for us business owners to be able to get to utilize for our businesses, to help out with our staff and paying rent and utilities and things like that. So they're going to be closing. So you're going to see a lot of properties becoming available, for rent and for sale and things like that. So this is actually optimal time for people to, yes, keep pushing on and pursuing that. If you are interested, or if you were already in the process, just continue to keep doing what you were doing, and reach out to Octal, and make sure that you see what they are going to go forward with doing. So I know that right now they're not conducting any orientation classes. That is one of the steps that you have to do, is do a physical orientation with them. They have halted it for right now, but I did hear that they are in the works of possibly making it a virtual class, like everything else is becoming kind of a virtual world now. So just stay, connected with them, so that way you are on the email list to, and they do that. Right. But I definitely don't say do not stop whatever you're doing, get those things that you can get out the way. So that when it does open back up, where they do release, the health department is saying, okay, we're, doing inspections again now, or they might be doing it in a different way, where as though, nobody else can be in the building but just you and the inspector, or they have to, come in and scan you and make sure, you don't have a temperature, and, all those things like that, that you're prepared for that. Also, for as far as, like I said, with the the buildings and stuff like that, you know, there are a lot of places being put up on websites and stuff like that. So, you know, driving by, if you're on your way to the market, just kind of look in the area and see, you know, what you kind of see all of a sudden just starts to kind of, you know, pop up or whatever. But a lot of stuff is being done virtually. CPR, you can get done virtually now, and then kind of just do the physical part later down the line. They're, you know, increasing time frames for things, so they're not letting them expire, so they're giving you more time to do it. Fingerprinting, I know you can still get your fingerprints done. As far as the criminal background here in PA, I'm sure in other states too, you can do that online. Like, a lot of things are online. So don't think that, oh my God, I got to stop what I'm doing and I can't move forward, because there are a lot of things that you still can continue to do. And just to kind of touch on that a little more too, even for us providers that are still in, you know, business, like right now, my inspection is going to be up for both of my facilities for July. So my inspector has contacted me, and she asked me to send her all of my files for my staff. So this is what she would usually do when she would come out to my facility, is to look over our, you know, files to make sure everything is current, everything is up to date, everybody has everything that they need. But now she's asking me to send that stuff to her. So that's kind of telling me that she's not going to be able to come out to me, you know? So they're kind of doing it that way. And if everything looks good, they'll pass you and give you your certificate, unless it's something physical that needs to be seen, or if you had a problem with like ratio, you know. But if you were missing like your ratio with a teacher, if you prove that you hired somebody and you had their file to show, I think they will excuse that. But if it's like something else that has to do with ratio, they may have to come out still to see you. But I think they're trying to eliminate as much as that. So a lot of stuff is being done, you know, by just sending it in now. So. Right.
Yeah. In New York, where my program is located, our licensing agency has made it clear that they are not even working in the offices right now. They're working from home, and they will not be coming out for inspections unless it's an emergency or like an investigation. And even then, they're taking the extra precaution of calling before to ask the screening questions. They're definitely protecting themselves.
And screen them too. And screen them too when they come in your facility. Screen them too.
I'm sure you'll probably in certain areas might get a violation if you do not screen them as well.
Right, like she didn't even check my right.
I do want to get into our attendee question. Kim wants to know, how do you think this new change of social distancing will affect childcare business in the future? Or do you think as time progresses that we'll go back to normal?
So are they saying like with the children, or just being able to operate and run?
I think that just in general, do you think that we'll ever go back to how things were before?
I think it's going to be some time. Because, you know, we're just kind of in I would say we're going into the second stage of this whole COVID situation, because with them slowly opening, you know, certain states and here, certain counties, like Philadelphia is still in the red zone. We haven't made it to the yellow zone yet because people don't want to stay in the house. But there are about 24 counties that were able to open last week. So I think once they kind of do that and they see what's going on, then they'll be able to adjust and see if they can let more counties and states open up. But I still believe that there are going to be more cases still coming about. Maybe not so rapidly how they did in the beginning, but there will still be some. So that's going to be the stage 2 of it all. And then we're going to go through another stage 3 when it's time for flu season, you know, when the winter comes. So a bunch of people are going to think that they just have the flu, and then it's going to be COVID all over again. You know what I mean? So then we're kind of going to go through that stage. And then I think, you know, it'll kind of slowly die off, but I don't think we will be adjusting to it very quickly. I think this is going to be kind of an ongoing thing for a while, that we're going to have to kind of not technically get used to, but, you know, this is going to be like, you know, the topic is our new norm now of, you know, masking and, you know, washing of the hands and using the thermometers and things like that we're going to have to do. So, but with the children, that's what I just feel for is my children, because I feel like all the things that we have worked so hard to teach them, now we're kind of unteaching them, you know, to share and to love one each other and to, you know, be there for your friend and to help your friend and, you know, be social. And now we're telling them not to and be apart and, you know, all of that stuff. So I just feel bad for that. And, you know, I know they're going to have a lot of questions because they have a lot of questions now. You know, they're like, what do you mean? People aren't washing their hands. They know they got to wash their hands for 20 seconds and get ABC. Like they tell you the whole, you know, spill. So they don't understand, like adults aren't doing that. Like, what do you mean? So, but I think that it's going to take some time. It's going to definitely take some time, which I don't actually mind, you know, I don't mind. I don't want to jump into something quickly, you know, or none of that stuff, you know, to be honest. I feel for my families and things like that, but I also have to feel, you know, for my staff and myself and my family, you know, as well in this whole situation. And I felt like they kind of put us in a hard place in that beginning because they mandated us to close, but then they put out the whole waiver thing for you to open up, you know, if you have essential, you know, parents that work for centers, and then for homes, they didn't close homes.
Right.
You know, that was an option for you. So I didn't like that they put our backs up against the wall like that, because now you're making me decide between my family, you know, if I want to still provide a service for my parents and have them come into my home where my family is and possibly contaminate that, you know. And then even with the essential worker whole situation, it's like, I know these parents have to go to work, but they're essential. So that means that they could possibly be around it. And then they could possibly contract it and then bring it into my home. You know, like it's just all of these things. So it's like you had to make that decision on yourself, on your own. And, you know, it was very heartbreaking because, you know, you had to wear all these hats, and my heart, you know, went out to those families and those workers and all of that stuff. But I had to just consciously make a decision that was just best for myself and everybody, you know, and all of that. So
yeah, of course,
yeah.
You have to do what's right for you
Right.
and your family, and consider what you're prepared for. Like I said before when I was speaking to Angela, what resources do you have access to readily available right now where you feel like you can, it's not a question that you'd be able to keep everyone as safe as possible and reduce the risk. And if you have any doubts about that, if you're not comfortable, it is your choice.
Right.
Thank you so much, Ineeze, for being here and answering our questions.
No problem.
I do want to thank you to everyone who's still watching. And I do want to take this time to get into our open Q&A. We do have a few questions that are in the Q&A box already and some that were asked in the chat box. I will say that if you typed a question into the chat, but did not put it in the Q&A box, can you do that right now so I can make sure I see your questions? And then Lakeshia and Angela and Ineeze, you can all turn your cameras back on so that we can get to these questions throughout the next couple of minutes. And again, if you do have to go, this recording, the recording of this will be shared with you, so don't worry about that. The first question that we have in our question and answer box is from Shantae, who wants to know, did you offer distance learning? And I'll quickly just answer that for my program. We did offer a virtual classroom. Within about 2 weeks of the whole shutdown, we put together something really quick where we could deliver craft supplies and things that children might not have at home to their homes, and we do that on a weekly basis. We charge our families a small fee to participate in that, but if they do not want to do that type of program where we're delivering stuff to them, and then they get a live Zoom meeting at 12 o'clock every day, like a Zoom circle time for an hour and a half. If they don't want to do that, we do have resources and other coloring pages and worksheets that they can access on our website for free. But how about for you guys? Do you have any sort of distant learning programs?
I did not do the distant learning virtual. However, my parents have received continuous emails over this time that have provided them with different tools and resources that they can use at home. I had my own personal, professional reasons as to why I didn't go into the whole, well, let's do Zoom or let's do Microsoft Teams, or and that just kind of goes back to my whole, I guess, experience or views about children and technology and screen time and all of that. So I still remained a resource to parents via phone calls, text messages, but I have definitely sent out continuous communications as far as, you know, letting them know about some of the sites that we use if their child had been here at school that they may not have otherwise known that we use. This is also a good time for them to go back through some assessment packets that have been previously sent home. You can always go back and review those items. I send a lot of projects home, so it's also a good time to review those. But I more so provided my parents with different websites that we use, different sites that I use for the Children for Active Learning. And I had one parent to say, okay, I'm not you, Miss Angela, so I have the resource, but how do I implement it? So for that parent, you know, I had a one-on-one with her, and then I provided her with taking a step back and maybe said, okay, you know what, here, start on this site. Then once you feel comfortable playing teacher to her, then go to this site. So I didn't really get into the distant learning. I approached it from a standpoint of correspondence by providing the parents with my different resources, tools, and websites.
Right. Okay, and me as well. I'm not really as tech savvy as I like to be, and I wasn't trying to learn how to do it and balancing everything because my center was still open. So I was already dealing with that. So I didn't want to feel like, okay, now I'm trying to learn Google Classroom. So I did what I knew best, which was similar to what you did. It was the resources. Anytime there was an app or a website that was doing free trial, free this, I sent it to my parents. The parents were able to pick up like learning materials. I put art materials in a bag to go. I also created like Pinterest boards. So with my Pinterest boards, it was based on like home materials I knew they had. So if your child needed to learn colors, okay, go get that cereal off the top of your refrigerator, and this is how you do it. So I gave them more of like resources and like examples of what they could do. So when some parents was asking me like, hey, like I need some a little bit more specific, I'm like, okay, so I'm not gonna go into like detail, like give you a schedule, give you a lesson plan, because that's just different. And I just don't feel like you gotta do all of that at home. Just provide these experiences. So I would just tell them like, hey, read a book to your child. You may do that. Pick an activity off the Pinterest board, do some music and movement. But then I also gave them like some real good family activities to do. I was like, parents, take advantage of this extra time that you might not get to do. So build a fort in your living room. So I also gave them like other things to do to just kind of keep busy that didn't always have to be like work. Right. So that's kind of how I handled it.
Okay.
And yes, I'm doing Zoom with my children. We do it twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays. It was kind of hard at first because I had them all on there at the same time, and that really wasn't working out because it was just so much going on, and some kids are eating, and
Wow.
some kids just are not listening, and they're just doing whatever they want to do, and then they're talking about the background instead of what we're trying to focus on, you know, all that stuff. So then I had to break it down and start to do them individually. So now that's what we're doing now. So I just have my teachers with their groups, and the parents pick a time that they have for that particular day, and that's when they come on for their session. It's only about 15 minutes or so, but I also provided them with education.com. It has like a lot of resources on there too, and things that they can do with their parents at home, ditto sheets. They have books on there that can be read by them or, you know, the parent, or it can be read to them, scavenger hunts, you know, just all types of things are on there. But I send it out weekly, you know, about like 21 activities. They don't have to complete them all, but it's enough to get them through the week, and also to give the parents a break for a second. They could put them on there and have them do that. So that's technically what we are pretty much.
To bounce off of what you had mentioned, Angela, about like I'm not sure what your specific view is on children and technology, but I understand that perspective as well, because in my center, I also like preach to my teachers, we don't need to be on the tablet all day. But if that is similar to what your concern is with doing the Zoom, that is something to consider. Like if programs did want to implement some sort of virtual experience, that's something to consider. How long is it going to be? How long are you asking toddlers to look at a screen, or preschoolers even to look at a screen?
But also even just for Google Duo or even FaceTime. I mean, their attention span, even on there. I mean, they'll be all excited to FaceTime me or Google Duo. And then after a minute, Miss Angela's like, okay. And they're sidetracked. I mean, so I commend everyone that has definitely tried to, turn preschoolers into Zoom experts. Hey, they can pick up on anything else technology driven. So, why not? But I just, I haven't now. I won't say that I won't try to or have to eventually implement something if I choose to do hybrid 2 days out of the week, and then we're face to face 3 days. I'll have to see what August brings.
Right.
But, even if I did have to go hybrid for 2 days out of the week, I'm going to have to be very strategic as to how I
You have to get creative. And Lakeshia, I completely forgot to also mention, like, while we are doing it, we are open as well. So I can understand the struggle to balance being open and also doing a virtual classroom experience. The only reason that we're able to successfully do it every day is because before this crisis, we had 26 employees. We did lay off 4 of them, and two of the 26 are working from home. So they're the ones that are focusing on doing lesson plans, or like they're planning every single day. They're being paid full time, so we expect them to put on a great show for an hour and a half a day. And our view is that some of these parents are going to sit their kids in front of an iPad or the TV all day, every day anyway. So if we can take up an hour of that time with some educational stuff and make a connection with them, then that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I do want to get into try to get through 2 more questions. Phaedra, I hope I'm saying that right, wants to know, for the facilities that have remained open, so I guess this is a question for you and I, Lakeshia, have you had any cases either with parents or actual students? And again, I'll give my quick input that we have not had, we actually did have a parent who called to let us know that both parents did have confirmed cases, but the child wasn't, I don't know, I'm not sure. I think they were just giving a courtesy call. The child hadn't been in our program for a month at that point. Like, they decided to disenroll at the time of this emergency, and I think they were just calling out of courtesy, but it had already been over 4 weeks since the child was in our program. And no other students that we know of had confirmed cases that have been on site with us. But one thing that we're trying, I know the question didn't address this, but for our staff, one thing that we're trying to do to protect our staff is, because we have so many and because we don't need so many, we only are seeing 30% attendance. Our staff are alternating work weeks. So we do 11-hour days, 5 days a week, and then the following week they don't come to work. So in case someone does have a confirmed case, they might have already been out of the building for between 5 and 9 days, including the weekend, away from other people within the facility. Or if we did have to quarantine precautionarily half our staff, we still have the other half where we can come in, clean, and reopen. So we're taking extra precautions with our staff. What about for you, Lakeshia?
So we are blessed to say that we haven't had any confirmed cases with our teachers, with our parents, or with our students. And that truly is, like I said, a blessing for us. We've done something similar. We're not doing, I don't have as many teachers as you, so we're not doing as far as like the rotating week, but I did reduce their hours. So they're still getting full pay. It's just that they're not working as often. So that was just something that I did to kind of like calm some of my teachers, because some of them were very nervous at the onset of this. And then that also helps to make sure that we don't have as many teachers in the building at one time if we don't have to. And so those are some of the things that we have done to just kind of make it a little bit easier. But this time, we haven't had any sick kids, which I like, because I'm like, when I redo those sick policies, I need to go in kind of like how you were saying, Angela, and change some of those things, because since we were so hardcore with our parents, and our parents knew that if your child showed any type of symptoms, we wasn't gonna let them in. The parents wasn't even trying to come. They would send a text, look, she got a cough. I don't know if you're going to say something, so I'm going to keep them at home. So, I mean, when you say, like, and I was like, oh, I love this. Like, but that's because they knew we was going to turn them away. Like, don't come. And we sit there and we talk a little bit. So if that child needs to cough, that cough got to come out. If that child got to sneeze, anything. So, just I feel like putting those extra procedures in place where the parents felt like, I'm not even going to waste my time dropping them off. I think that helped us a lot control just the sickness of just like small children.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Someone asked, is social distancing mandatory? Erica asked, is social distancing mandatory for children once they are inside the facility? I'm not sure if in your states, ladies, if they're saying it's mandatory. It is strongly recommended, but it's certainly in certain age groups like infants and toddlers, how do you enforce social distancing? It's not possible. You have to pick them up. You have to change their diaper. They're going to run into each other and everything. But we can do certain things as providers, especially with the older age group, to try to give them some responsibility as far as how to practice social distancing within their own person. Like our local childcare council, our resource and referral agency gave out a sample of like an example of children pretending to be helicopters, and like you can't crash into someone else's helicopter. Or if you mark X's on the space that you're going to do circle time that are 6 feet apart from one another. I think one of you ladies mentioned spacing out during lunch times and nap times. I think those are things that we need to take on as a responsibility for ourselves and our business, even if they're not mandated by the state.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think, one final question that I think we might want to address is Shantae wants to know, I would love to know about any grants people received. Did you guys take advantage of any of the federal, or I don't know if you have local
Yes, indeed. Every single one.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I said it is very important to make sure you have your paperwork in order, you know,
Right.
and that you are paying your staff through a payroll company, because that, you know, it's a pain of a bill to have to pay, but it comes in handy when you need it to be, you know.
Correct.
But yeah, I definitely did. I've been blessed to have received them all. So
Right.
I am utilizing them and being able to pay my staff their full, you know, rate and their hours. Because at first, you know, I started to dwindle down and I was just paying them half their time. So if they worked 40 hours a week, I was paying them for 20 hours. And just having them do things at home, like at least do 2 trainings a week for me. And then, you know, the Zoom classes that we conduct with the children. And that's all I was just asking them to do. But now that I have those grants, now, you know, I can pay them for at least another 2 more months their full salary, and then kind of see what happens after that, and then just give them the option, either we go back to doing what we're doing, or they're going to have to, you know, file for unemployment at that point. But just to address something really quickly, I know today the governor here in Pennsylvania spoke on some additional funds that are supposed to be coming out through the CARES Act. It's like $51 million or $1 billion or something like that they are going to allot to childcare programs. I was talking to the director of ELRC to find out more specific of what this is meaning, because it was kind of iffy up and down with the wording of how it was. So I wasn't sure if they were saying, because like I said, they haven't said if they were going to pay us still for June, or are they saying this fund that comes out is going to be our payment, or is this an addition? Because the way the wording was, it was kind of sounding a little fishy. But I need to know before I sign anything, because it definitely was not enough to cover what we've already been getting paid, you know. And then another thing, or is it extra funding to help us? It's supposed to help us for when it's time for us to reopen, to be able to get those materials that we need, that we're all talking about we're low on, you know, those cleaning supplies and things, because they were supposed to have a partnership too with the company, as they were going to supply us with masks and thermometers and all that stuff. But then they came back and said, oh, sorry, we can't, because I guess whatever they had fell through or something. So now they're like, now y'all gotta find it. So we're like, okay, but where we're finding from, you know, like Lakeshia said, a lot of these businesses like Uline and stuff, they won't sell to us because they're holding their stuff off for essential workers and hospitals and things like that. So it's like we're supposed to find it. But I did look up and find a location. If anybody wants to know, just DM me on Instagram and I'll let you know where you can go to go get you some masks and gloves and cleaning supplies too. So but hopefully it is an you know, an add-on, because, you know, we can definitely use that. So it's supposed to be used to help you clean your facility, which I did get someone last week to come, because I thought we were going to be getting ready to open, but I had them come in and like kind of spray my daycare with this solution that kind of kills any germs and coats things, you know, that it lands on or whatever, to kind of keep that down. So, you know, hopefully they will continue to offer some type of grants or payments for us if we are going to be out for, you know, a longer period of time.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have something, I just want to just say to anybody, if you see any type of loans, grants, anything, apply for it. Like, make sure that you are applying, even if you feel like you don't qualify, apply for it, because they have to use the money. So if people don't apply for it, then what, they just have the money. So make sure that you apply for everything. Also, don't be afraid to extra circle. So me by myself, I wasn't able to be on my phone 24/7 to make sure that I'm abreast on all the new things that they're updating. So I reached out to family and friends. Hey, if you see any grants, if you see any loans, it don't matter if I already applied for it, send it to me, because it might be something different. So just make sure, like I did that method, and I was blessed to be able to get all of the government loans. It took forever to come, but I finally was able to get it. You know, I was worried for a minute, but you have to be on time, because everybody is impacted right now. So 30 billion seemed like a lot, but everybody is impacted. So it's like if they're seeing these applications open at this time, you need to be the first one.
Yes.
But also, it's very important that you have that paperwork together. When they were asking for stuff, I ain't have to go search for anything. Oh, you need payroll reports? Boom, 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 boom. What else do you need? I was able to give that. So make sure that you get yourself organized, because they all asking for the same thing. They all asking for bank statements because they want to see like how has this made an impact. So just going ahead and having that ready so that when different opportunities come, your business is in alignment of what they want, because federal government, the money that they giving is great money, but they only giving it if your business is structured properly and if your paperwork is correct. So just kind of keep that in mind just going forward. So that's just kind of what I want to say.
Right. And
and Lakeshia, you're a center, right?
Yes.
Ineeze, I know you're a center.
Center and family.
Family, okay. Being family, even here I've been on several conference calls, and the thing that I find like so hurtful during this time is that family childcare educators really need to be benefiting from the funds that are available. A lot of us are private pay, such as myself. 100% of my enrollment is private pay. For some of the family child care programs here locally, they may be majority private pay, some would be state certificate families. But I have been on a call with so many fellow family child care educators that unfortunately, because they're not properly handling books, you're not properly handling your tuition, you are absolutely lost when these applications are asking you for your ledger, or these applications are asking you for your income. And it really just goes to show how, and I'm not saying all family child care owners, I'm saying some of us, and I've been on the call with some that I have had to help fill out and complete their application and answer questions of what do they mean by this, or where can I get them something from saying that I take in this amount of money. And Ineeze mentioned the payroll company that can help. It's easier when you are a center and you've got those additional companies, resources, tools that you can go to that can pull there for you, or they have you have access to it. But it just really goes to show though how family child care, we have so much further to go as far as seeing ourselves as a business owner. Because when you start seeing yourself as a business owner, you will then take accountability for managing your books, knowing that you have to manage tuition and not just collect it. Because times like this really go to show you might be running a business from your house, but when you want to now step out there and apply for this money that's available, they want documentation. They want it on letterhead. They want to see that you have a business checking account. And so it really, if for nothing else, if there is anyone on the call that right now, there are some things that you can be doing, especially if you're a family child care business owner. If there are some things that you can be doing to better your business, please get organized. Please get organized and start seeing yourself as a CEO, someone who's aware of your money when it's coming in, how it's coming in, and if the bank calls you, for example, I ended up getting approved for the PPP through a bank that I do not even have my business account with. But because, I don't have a business account with him, he was generally like literally trying to process my application, but this vice president was calling me like every hour, like, okay, can you submit me this? Okay, can you submit me this? No problem, hit the email button, you know, but you know, it really has taught me like, this is the importance of organizing and knowing your books, even if it is just you that has to try to manage it. You know, knowing your books and knowing your sales and knowing, you know, what a ledger statement is, or having that business checking account.
Right, I agree. And I think that goes for not just home daycares, but I know a lot of centers, especially smaller ones, that are in that same position where things are just not organized. As a very general statement, it's not, you need to get yourself organized. Sometimes it might require paying extra for that childcare management software system like Brightwheel or like Tadpoles or ProCare or EasyCare, something like that. If you know that you're not going to be diligent about keeping things organized yourself, then maybe pay the extra. I think some of these services are as little as a couple of dollars per child. Like I know Tadpoles is only like $2 per child, and they just introduced a billing function on their platform. So pay the little bit extra to keep yourself organized and prepare for things like this, like Angela was saying. We do have one attendee with their hand raised, and we're going to get to that, and then we're going to get off this call because you guys have all been so patient. But Miss Antoinette, I'm going to open your microphone to allow you to talk. If you would like to say something or ask a question, you're able to do so right now. You think you have to unmute yourself, Antoinette, and you can talk. There should be a microphone button at the bottom of your screen that you might be able to click and unmute. If you're hearing us, can you, Antoinette? Okay. I don't know why that's not working, but Antoinette, you can always send one of us an email. But ladies, thank you so much for reaching out. Thank you so much for being on this webinar with me and answering all these very important questions. And I do want to show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know it was kind of last minute. It was thrown together within like a week, but thank you for making the time to be here. And I hope to talk to you guys again very soon.
Same here.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Everybody stay safe. Bye-bye.
And if you guys, the attendees, if you want to follow us on Instagram, these are our Instagram handles. And this recording will be sent to you within 24 hours if you would like to rewatch it or send it to someone else. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. The conversation does continue next week, Wednesday. Like I said, May 27th at 6 p.m. we will have additional childcare business owners on to talk more about adapting to this new normal. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this webinar replay. It means so much to all of us that you look to us for guidance. If you need any more guidance, or if you'd like to book me for a private consultation where you can ask me questions one-on-one, please feel free to do so by going to childcaresites.com/Dani Christine. Don't forget to register for part 2 while you're on that website. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that you can be notified every single time I post a new video on this channel. And follow Childcare Sites on Instagram at Childcare Sites to stay up to date with what we've got going on. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.